Hey everybody, welcome back. Aggro here. Before we move on to the Xbox PS4, I want to make a quick note for you guys for the Xbox NA set that's supposed to be happening a little bit later on. Our fourth set of the day was initially supposed to be One Night at LAN up against Sugar Pea Squad. Unfortunately, One Night at LAN was unable to field a roster, so they got disqualified. So we tried to move on to the second set that was being initially played offline in order to try and bring that to you so we could at least have something there for you guys to watch. And unfortunately, we were unable to do so. So just as a note, this is going to be our final set of the day in the PS4 region. Unfortunately, we won't be able to bring you NA Xbox, and again, we apologize for that, but One Night at LAN unable to field the roster, so they got disqualified this week. With that, it's time to talk a little bit about our upcoming set 3, which again will be our final set of the day. In order to do that, I've got Taco joining me on the desk. And Taco, we've got a pretty good one here in Shrimp Gang up against Big Money Esports.
Yeah, Shrimp Gang, I think, really trying to solidify themselves at the top of those standings, but this is not going to be an easy feat, toppling over Big Money Esports in the process.
It's true. Big Money Esports has been playing a little bit better as of late, it feels like. They've been trying to get some momentum going. Maybe it's the fact that it's spring and they're, they've got their Angry Leprechaun there. It's kind of synergizing well. St. Patrick's Day maybe put them in the right state of mind.
That life RNG passive.
That's right. Sometimes it ends up helping out for you. Big Money Esports definitely playing better, but Shrimp Gang, they've got their work cut out for them up against the top card.
And that's the big thing that you have to factor in, is that I think it's been a very heavy distinction so far between Shrimp Gang and the rest of the league. I feel like most everybody else was just in the process of trying to play catch-up, largely due to the fact that I think Shrimp Gang just has the players with a little bit more experience, so they have better understandings of how to properly handle situations where they've been out-pressured during the early and mid-game. I feel like a lot of times teams get kind of scared out of trying to be the initiators when they're on the back foot without realizing that there are instances that you can fully take advantage of. But Big Money Esports certainly going to be one of those teams where if Shrimp Gang slip up, I don't see Big Money Esports punishing them for it.
That's going to be something to keep your eye on, as well as watching out for Zerk. So you saw him a little bit about him in those highlights. One of the more notable players on Big Money Esports, which, as you mentioned, are going up against a team in Shrimp Gang that have a lot of names on that roster. Original Spartan, of course, in that mid lane is kind of the lead there. But Shrimp Gang's looked pretty strong so far. We'll see if they can keep that going. Should be ready to get into picks and bans pretty shortly here between these two teams. The PS4 NA scene seems to be a little bit less competitive, I'd say, because even though there's an undefeated team still in PS4 Europe, those games have always been very, very close, where Shrimp Gang has looked pretty dominant at times.
I would have to agree with that statement for the most part, but I will note Shrimp Gang, or at least Spartan's team, did take a pretty heavy loss not too long ago, and so that, I'm sure, is still trickling into the back of their minds from time to time. I know that Shrimp Gang aren't looking for any more of those L's. No,
definitely not. We'll see if they can catch the W right here. They are in that first pick slot, and Gibalanque going to be their first ban. It seems like first pick's in a position where they're often just throwing away gods that are good, but not necessarily ones they want to pick very early.
I think it's also a favorable position to take away the Gibalanque, because both of these hunters on these teams could be very potent with them, and it's probably just for the best that they don't have to worry about conviction looking for that Gibalanque, and at the same time, maybe Xerxes isn't just really feeling the hunter Shabal.
First ban, or second ban of the first pick is King Arthur, and usually that's reserved for the team in the second pick selection, but I guess Shrimp Gang doesn't want to select it for themselves, otherwise they'd be in a pretty good spot to do so. That leaves the door open for the Bacchus ban by Big Money Esports, so now Hera is on the table, Merlin actually available, and he will be the first pick.
This is what I was waiting for, and I think it's the first time we've really seen any prioritization given towards this Merlin.
First week he's available.
True, that is also very true. This is the first week of Merlin being eligible for competitive play, and in the last set even we saw Merlin bans happening in the third and fourth pick ban selection. I think that this was smart from Shrimp Gang, because Merlin brings a lot of damage by himself to the table.
Yeah, it's not like he's bad in the early game particularly. He's pretty good throughout the early to mid game, and then becomes a real nightmare in the later stages. Once you get that cooldown reduction going and you can really swap stances with ease, he's a nightmare, man. And Kepri's a great pick to try and protect him alongside the Hachiman this time around. So a pretty good pressure duo lane that has some kill potential as well.
But possibly a trap for Shrimp Gang to opt for this Kepri after seeing the Achilles already lined up for big money. I think this Achilles could play a very important factor for preventing that Scarab's Blessing from being anywhere near as saving as it could have been.
A little bit of a safe pick here in Jing Wei this time around for Big Money Esports as they ban away that Bellona. I think that's a good point, that the Achilles was there to kind of maybe dissuade the Khepri pick, but it doesn't seem to have worked. But he's not just the execute, right? I mean, or the ultimate rather, the res. He brings good lane pressure, pretty decent CC, some decent peel. Khepri's still a good pick, even if your Scarab's Blessing won't always be perfect.
I just think that Big Money have made it clear that they do not want to allow this Merlin the luxury of being able to free cast from the backline. Achilles and Artio both scream backline diving potential to me.
Yeah.
And adding the Jing Wei on top of it, I think, if anything, Big Money might have come out on top so far from these initial 3 picks. But anything's bound to change. Right now, the only thing I really want to see from Shrimp Gang is probably more commitment to that hard CC composition, because if there's one thing that could bode very well for this Merlin is just having enough crowd control to deal with the Achilles and Artio and keep him safely peeled.
Daji's a pretty good pick in this spot, can easily chase down Merlin, even through the flicker. I mean, just using your 2, you'll catch up to him with the extra movement speed. And of course, no CC immunity on that change stance, so maybe that is the pick here in the jungle for Big Money. Maybe that's the shutdown for Merlin. I like the idea as Shrimp Gang go for the Chalk and then the Hun Bats. You were asking for some more CC, and those are 2 picks that can bring it.
Chuck, not necessarily. I mean, he's got that massive AoE silence, which
Sure.
I think is going to be important around objective control. It might be one of Shrimp Gang's better responses as well towards the objective burst that I think Big Money already have with their comp. But this Poseidon, now you're doubling down on the cripple effect here. And if it was already troublesome for this Merlin to get away from the Artio cripple field, well, just imagine a Poseidon, especially if Big Money is opting for a little bit more of that utility-based build that we've been seeing as of late.
Yep.
The Gem of Isolations can be very, very powerful against a Merlin.
Excited to see what Merlin does in his competitive debut here in Season 6. Game 1 between Shrimp Gang and their opposition, Big Money Esports. Let's throw it over to the casters.
Thanks, Aggro and Taco. It's Finch and Anatoly here on the call. Big Money Esports got a big problem coming at them. That's going to be Covey on this Merlin. It would be hard, I think, Totally, for us to talk about anything else except for this Grand Wizard himself. We haven't gotten to see him at the competitive level yet, but here he is in all his glory.
He is, and he's looking magnificent, honestly. I like that little outfit between him. A little difficult to kind of play at level 1, but as you get some levels, a little bit of cooldown reduction becomes significantly easier. The scaling is really important to get that magical power on him, especially utilizing that passive, the Overlord.
Yes.
Basically getting a little miniature Polynomicon after every 3 hits.
Yep, once he uses those abilities, he'll be able to do some more damage with those autos. He's in the fire stance. Again, he's got the Arcane Fire and Frost stance that he can switch between, and this fire one's good for clear. You saw he was able to leave it at the speed buff and start rotating early as well to help out Jumpa. But one thread I think they were right to bring up on the desk was Aggro talking about it, is that he doesn't have that CC immunity. Yes, the flicker is very strong,
yes,
but he could get punished quite easily by Daji once she goes up onto the Palau, or even by Poseidon potentially with his cripple pull. He might be in some trouble.
It's such a long cooldown too, the flicker. Like at rank 1, it's 24
no cooldown, yeah.
seconds. It goes down to 20 seconds. When you change stances, it's a shared cooldown. It's not like your other abilities that have their own separate amount of cooldown. So once you flicker and let's say Ice Stance, you all of a sudden go to Arcane, you're not going to have that flicker available to the Arcane.
That's right. It's like you said, it's shared amongst all 3 of them, as Covey was already in some early trouble. Privative felt comfortable going aggressive and trying to trade him out. So he is going to take some poke here early on. He's got the Mage's Blessing for some mana sustain, so it won't be all doom and gloom, as Xerxes has to drop the cripple field and dash away after Zaxi. Yeah, jutsu'd in aggressively.
I like the play so far from Shrimp Gang's duo lane, being very aggressive. Matt Koi's alongside Zaxi. He's using that Khepri passive to get the shield amongst themselves. So any sort of damage that they take is also just going to come back as long as they stop taking damage after the shield. So far Xerxes and Conviction getting pushed to their tower consistently. Thus far, no real trouble considering they already got their purple buff.
As long as they defend that, they should be okay. Still thinking about how Merlin's going to navigate this game. Yes, he could have some trouble from Privative on this Daji, but then they drafted this Khepri for Matt Koiz, right? So he gets pulled in, Matt Koiz drops the Scarab's Blessing, but then if Snados is around, he'll just execute him even through the Scarab's Blessing. So it feels like this sort of cat and mouse game on what gets baited out first and how well can Covey position.
And the thing was, this Khepri was picked into the Achilles.
Yeah,
His first pick Merlin,
Yeah.
Achilles Artio. And maybe that could have been a Geb instead, especially knowing Matt Koiz. Like, he loves this Geb. So that probably would have been a better option. However, not only the Scarab's Blessing, but the Rising Dawn from Khepri is just going to mitigate a lot of damage once you're using that on your allies, so that's another form of peel.
That's going to be one of the storylines, at least, is keeping Covey alive. Another one, for me, though, could be Jumpa on this Unbots and Nikwid together. If they can create enough disruption, then maybe Covey won't even have to worry so much about all this focus on him on this Merlin. I mean, we'll get a chance to talk about it. This is a aggressive rotation. Original Spartan is lurking in the jungle. The root can't land in time, though, so I think Matt Koiz and Zaxi are out of there, though I like the idea. Try and bring this Poseidon over to the dual lane early for a gank. It's just not going to hit home.
Great communication, honestly, between all of Shrimp Gang, even having a little bit of vision underneath and on the top side of those mid camps, so identifying exactly what Spartan evil intentions were and recognizing, passively going back to their tower. And that's a hard 180 switch, because Matt Koiz and Zaxi, they were honestly at the enemy's tower line not even a minute ago.
That's right. They were the ones pushed up, and they recognized that they had to fall back. So that's good communication, and like you said, good warding to keep Shrimp Gang heads up. And it's what you expect. Shrimp Gang is the top team here in PS4 North America, and they've earned it. We talk about it all the time. This is a team full of talent. Jumpa, a world champion. Matt Koiz was in the finals last year, unfortunately couldn't complete it. Zaxis and Covey and Nikwid have all been around forever. So these are certainly strong players, and it's going to take a lot for Big Money, who had a nice win last week, to keep that momentum going here against Shrimp Gang.
That's right. Like, Big Money Esports, they haven't really been around the block the same way Shrimp Gang have. So they got a lot to prove, at least in Season 6, to be able to win some lands for themselves, or at least prove that they can contest with these land-contested players that's been all over the place, traveling around, having that experience. And it's a big difference between playing online versus LAN, so this could be still Big Money Esports' comfort spot.
That's right, and they've got Privative to try and rely on as well. He's the one that I've really been focusing in on this squad. Snados had an excellent set last week too, so I wouldn't be surprised if some combination of these two is what could give them a chance to compete against Shrimp Gang, as Matt Koiz lurked in the jungle, though a Khepri, not all that scary.
No, definitely not. He won the race a little bit for the Guardian's Blessing, but after this wave, Xerxes won't be too far behind him. Both the Guardians going for the reinforced shoes, and I like it. There's a lot of dots from both sides. When you're dealing with a Khepri and a Merlin, you got to build up those passive stacks. And don't forget, Adachi has the bleeding effect. Poseidon's Whirlpool has quite a bit of ticks. Even Ardio's Channel Beam that's looking to engage will build up those reinforced shoes.
That's exactly right. Though Merlin, not the only new thing that's happening nowadays and available to our competitive players. Aussie and Iqval got some love in these Hunter builds, so now they're full-fledged Tier 3 items that you build into through the same trees. Balance Blade will eventually get you up there towards that Aussie. So I'm wondering if we'll see either one of them. We see Aussie a lot in these Transcendence builds, so probably not here. But what about Iqval? Around that same time, you try and get Executioner, it can feel good, though the pin on Executioner is hard to give up.
I would love to
or
see.
the shred, I guess is better.
I would love to see Iqval for Conviction, because whenever you're against a Hunt Bats, lowering his attack speed hurts the passive as well to be able to mingle that basic attack between the abilities. Whereas Privative is only getting one basic attack and instantly power out.
Ultimate comes through for Covey, and goodness gracious did that hit home. The bead was there to prevent the knockup, but look how much that took from his health.
That was only one ability, right?
He was just
100% health before that came out. That was 70%. I'm like, wow, holy. And that's only going to get harder as the game progresses. This is a level 8 Poseidon with only Shoes of Focus. I think he just got the Tier 2 version.
Great timing on this Palau from Privative to get him away from the silence from Nikwid, but the accuracy has not been there with these chains, and that means Nikwid can likely just walk out of there. He has the slows, though he's being followed. Jumpa has the ultimate as well, and that forces them back. That's unfortunate from Privative, because not only did the Palau not hit home, but that might have been a free kill onto Covey if he just rotated to mid with it instead.
That's true, but Nikwid, without his ultimate, would have been the freest of kills, honestly, without that silence, the CC immunity that you get from that to get rid of the chains. And Shrimp Gang now still feeling frisky, though, knowing that there's no Palau. How are they going to defend the blue?
Well, they bring Snados in on the backside, but Nikwid and Matt Koiz are too strong of a front line as they go in for the fight for the blue buff. Snados, though, does want to come in and claim his prize, as Shrimp Gang couldn't successfully strip it away.
I think the later this game goes, though, it should favor out Big Money Esports, simply because Spartan's damage is going to skyrocket. I think the longer a team fight lasts, it will favor Shrimp Gang, but with how much burst damage Big Money has, you got the Achilles, Dodgy, Poseidon, a good amount of control for Xerxes to assist in that damage. So as long as they can group up, but you can't miss Krakens like that, though.
And this is too aggressive. Original Spartan is all alone. He didn't have any information, though he is quite fast. And that should be enough to get him out of there. Xerxes rotates over to defend. And I like what you were saying about how these teams are going to be having these team fights later on. Jumpa's ultimate, the Fear No Evil, and then the Chog ultimate as well. Those are two very big disruptive team fight ultimates. But outside of that, these gods aren't that scary in these fights. So if Big Money can make it beyond those, then probably they will have a good chance to win this fight.
They just have to make sure that they time their abilities properly so that way they don't blow it all onto the same target, knowing that Matt Koiz is going to be able to revive that individual target.
Right.
Unless it's all going to be onto Matt Koiz in the first place. So you just blow him up, force the Khepri ultimate on himself, and then look for the rest of the team fight from there.
That's right. And they have some good ultimates to get away from the Storm Call and the Fear No Evil. We already saw Privative use his ultimate to jump up in the air and avoid the Storm Call earlier, and that same thing can continue to happen. But this Gold Fury is happening for Big Money. I think Matt Koiz and Covey have started to smell this out, but Big Money can probably stick on this. Covey isn't going to make it there in time. They secure the first Gold Fury of the game 9 minutes in, sneaking it away from Shrimp Gang.
Shrimp Gang had no idea whatsoever. No. They see Xerxes in front of them just kind of like backpedaling, and they're like, huh, wait, yeah? They're doing it? Really? Okay, let's find out. And then all of a sudden, it's just like too little too late at that point. 9 minutes in, great call from Big Money Esports.
And even if they had been there to contest, I think Original Spartan had the ultimate back up at that point, so it would have been very difficult to out-confirm him. He's at 20% CDR with the cooldown boots and the Mage's Blessing. Spear the Magus to synergize off that Whirlpool. He's very, very scary at this point in the game.
You could tell Spartan knew exactly where Jumpa was. He was kind of like peeking his head around the corners like, I think he's over there. I think there's a wild monkey roaming about, but there's a wild bear that's looking for an engage.
Rigno just wanted to crack it. He didn't get quite as much as he wanted. Fear No Evil is good. That locks down Xerxes and forces him back out, but everyone gets pulled back in by the pal out. Privative sets it all up, and Snados is right there for the follow. That's a double for the Dodgy. They're on the board with 3 quick kills.
Xerxes a little low. Nico needs one basic attack, but he's gonna get slowed. Finally finds it, getting at least 1 for 3. Looking for a second victim. Privative very low, but without any cooldowns. Niquid gonna reset for the moment. Actually finds the axe. Privative not respecting the cooldowns.
They just have so little mana. The execute will finally shut things down. That makes it 4 for 2 overall, as no one had died before that fight. And then all of a sudden, 10 minutes in, like some seal was broken, everything popped off, and all of a sudden, 6 members go down. And I've got to say, that's 2 things for me, Tully, and I want your thoughts on this. Original Spartan's Kraken wasn't the best in that fight, and Privative pulling in 3. I mean, that just can't happen.
Privative pulling in 3 was just magnificent at the end of the day. That should not happen, honestly. I think there needs to be more separation for Shrimp Gang, but that fight was just very chaotic on both fronts.
It was all over the place.
Right, like, because Jumpa goes in, he pops his ultimate as well. Matt Koiz couldn't revive himself in time. He was spamming it on himself, but he actually misses before he dies, and he gets it off on Niquid instead. And that wasn't intended, because even though you do get movement speed and additional things, you want to be able to save yourself. So that could have went a long way if you were able to at least have another Khepri assist in the matters.
I'm glad you pointed out the Unbot's ultimate as well, because I think it only really hit Xerxes, and it did force the RDO back out of the engagement and really shut it down, because Xerxes is in a great position in that fight. But even still, that's not quite enough. So a few ultimates from Shrimp Gang, I would say, that were off the mark. The Scarab's Blessing, the Fear No Evil, and all kind of didn't come through the way they wanted to in that fight. So a little bit more coordination on those, and they can win this next fight easy.
They definitely can, and I think a lot of it's going to come down to plays like this. Xerxes is going to die, but look at the bait.
Nowhere for him to go, but that does mean Privative can pull 2 back in. Niquid rotates immediately with the Storm Call, but the execute gets blocked, though everyone's still low, and Snados on a killing spree still wants blood. They've got conviction here as well. They proc the Scarab's Blessing, but Snados, undeterred, sets up a double underneath the tier 2.
They're not done yet, forcing to defensively airstrike away. So far, Snados assisting with 2 kills, only losing Xerxes in the process, making it really solid now for Big Money Esports.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. Privative and Snados were the ones I was looking at coming into this match, and they're the ones I'm looking at now. When these two are on the same page, Big Money absolutely can hang with Shrimp Gang. That was good of them to get that pick onto RDO to start that fight off. But if multiple people are going to be getting pulled in by Palau, if Snados is going to be able to sit on the back line and just swing away, it's going to be hard for Shrimp Gang to win.
I'm not sure if Matt Koi's had his ultimate up or not to save Kobe's life because he used it on himself under the tier 1 tower.
That's right.
But losing your mid Merlin like that when he's already 3 levels behind, it's difficult to get back into the game now.
Courageous here from Nickwood. Brave, I would describe this as. It ends up working on his favor. He sustains through it all, and now his team is in a 4v3. Nickwood takes down Privative early on. He wants back in. The slow is there as well from Kobe. He flickers in. Can't find the rest of the damage. Xerxes gets a stun. Kobe does eventually get him, but Snados executes right back. Kraken's there, but it's nowhere near enough, and Snados wants to keep pushing.
He wants it a little bit more. Should have been a little more patient with that second execute. The damage out of Spartan, and also Snados is showing to be fruitful.
Able to get away from the mounted archery as well as Original Spartan. Now he can come right back in, and Matt Koiz doesn't have any options. Snados, with his name all over the game, they found 4.
That is just absolutely disgusting and wild. Yet again, Xerxes is the sacrificial lamb that Big Money Esports is using to beautiful effect, finding 4 in return for your support. Couldn't ask for anything more except for maybe a Pyromancer.
And for my money, Kobe has not looked particularly comfortable on this Merlin so far, and I wonder how much time they were able to get in with some prep on it. He's so far behind Original right now. He's 2-0-8, just playing a classic pick very well so far is what Original's done, and it's netted him a huge advantage. Now they're even going to pull this Oni Fury. I don't know if Shrimp Gang can even make their way in, though. Jumpa's going to try.
They're trying to. Fear no evil as well. Palau is going to force out the beats. Big Money confirming the Gold Fury, but the retreat needs to be on, but he misses the monkey bounce. Spartan getting off the back in the nick of time. No vision for Shrimp Gang to stop that back.
That punish potential was there, but Jumpa just couldn't find it. They'll settle for stripping away the red buff, which is no small prize, but it doesn't quite compare to the Oni Fury. And now Big Money, about 5,000 gold out in front or so. 6,000 experience is pretty impressive, and like we highlighted, a lot of that's in this middle lane where Kobe's having some trouble. Now 4 levels behind Original Spartan.
It's not easy. First picking Merlin, you're just asking to go against an aggressive composition that could dive you. Dodgy can get into the backline effectively, whether it's Blink or that third ability to cut the distance. Palau is also the gap closer to really snatch you back into the vices that Big Money's throwing at you. Snados on the Achilles is looking to dive you. So I think that Kobe probably bit off more than he can chew first picking the Merlin.
I think so too. Maybe Merlin, as strong as he is, can't just be picked evergreen into everything, as he could potentially get punished. We'll see, though. The game not entirely over yet, and Shrimp Gang still has a chance to turn things around. But so far, man, Snados, Privative, and Original Spartan have done such a great job in this game. And Snados and Original both have significant leads. So significant that they're baiting the Fire Giant. That pulls Matt Koiz back in. Scarab's Blessing keeps him alive, but Original's there for the follow-up.
Going in is Nickwood as well.
That's
with
big.
a Storm Call doing a lot of damage. Already Xerxes on out, but it's Privative that falls first for his team.
That was a big fight. Jumpa and Nickwood both dropped their ultimates at the same time, and Big Money Esports weren't ready for it. Snados is going to do the 1v2 against Kobe, but the execute's too early. Kobe wasn't even in the threshold, and now Snados in some trouble. Take a little bit of extra damage. Slow doesn't land, so the blink gets him out.
And Zaxi gonna take his time now, getting this tier 2 tower conviction, not able to get the body blocks that he needed. Zaxi able to get his team 1,500 gold.
Look how fast Original is. Holy cow, he's zooming around the map. I don't know if he's looking for anyone in particular, but he is certainly on a warpath. He is indeed looking for Zaxi. Whirlpool significantly off the mark as Zaxi puts on the juke boots and makes his way out of there.
Clean pickings now for the Hachiman that needs to get into that late game form. Going for the Ichabod now is a good look for him, being able to finish off that item. Now going to go for the Aussie, probably, unless it's an Executioner. Like, you could go into Aussie here. Double lifesteal is not too shabby, but penetration also important at this point in the game as we approach 17 minutes.
Yeah, I gotta think the X-Futures is gonna finish that one off. But if we could take a look at Iqbal's a good chance to talk about it. I believe it's the 30 power and 30 attack speed at base, but each one of those stacks off the successful auto attack gives you another 15 power, and just about everything you can hit stacks it back up. So this Iqbal is almost always stacked up and giving you that additional power. So it really can be a huge spike for Zaxi on this Hachiman, as Jumpa's going to start things off. Fear no evil, the conviction that forces out the beats.
Trying to run away now, the Jingwei should be out of the fight. Xerxes might be out of the fight really early. Paolau going to catch out Zaxi, forcing out the mounted archery, pulling back in Matt Kois, though he's not stressed out at all. He's going to abduct Snattles and force the defensive fatal strike.
And Nickwood wants to keep right on going. Kraken is there, and I don't know about that one. I guess he was worried Snatos was in trouble. But now without fear of the big mage punish, I don't know why Shrimp Gang wouldn't just keep pushing. This tier 1 tower is theirs, and Nickwood and Jumpa undeterred. They push beyond it, force back big money all the way to their tier 2, and grab some free gold for the squad. 500
gold to be exact on the tier 1. Not confident enough to go for the tier 2, considering that the respawns are not even necessary. They were just going to come back from the fountain, and without too much DPS now, level 16 Hachiman is not that much burst damage onto that tower, especially without a minion wave that the call would have been calculated or decisive.
So, big money have to get out of there. They're still holding on to a lead of about 2,000, but as we get later and later in this game, I don't think 2,030 and 3,000 experience is quite enough to feel comfortable against a team as strong as Shrimp Gang. And Covey did have some struggles earlier, but he's died no more times as we initially called him out. He's been able to be safer, falling back, not in range of Privative's ultimate. If he can stay comfortable, this Merlin will certainly still swing.
I mean, he could be worse, that's for sure. Like, he's only 2 levels down now as opposed to the 3, I think it was earlier. But yeah, where he is struggling, others are succeeding. Jumpa, with a 3-level lead on his own front, has been able to get the better edge of Privative because of the kind of lack of success in Big Money's later portion of the game teamfights.
Yeah, I think Privative's been looking more for setup than even securing his own farm, and it's hurt him compared to Jumpa, who's not only been converting the kills, but has been making sure he's there for the spawns of all this farm, and has netted him an advantage so far, as Big Money are the first ones there to the Gold Fury as it spawns yet again. Though with Jumpa right here, I doubt they can stay on it comfortably.
I like what Xerxes was trying to do there, trying to pop the Mad Guy's cloak out of Jumpa with the Artio Druid Root, Gold Fury. Already 50% health. Jumpa gonna blink in. He wants to steal.
He wanted to get past Xerxes. They might not have enough information on how low the objective was, as Snatos is already very low. The ultimate yet again for Rignal Spartan, not quite on the mark. That means that Shrimp Gang can keep pushing. Privative's up on the Palau, but who can he pull and into what follow-up? It turns out the answer is no one. And now Big Money have expended quite a few ultimates and gotten nothing.
He did force the beads out of Jumpa with the Mad Guy's cloak being down, so at least they have that going for themselves, as Matt Core is going to find the abduct onto Xerxes, but he's taking a lot in return.
Wow, the Whirlpool is so much. That's basically all it was, as it forces Matt Kois into the Scarab's Blessing. That means Snatos can keep on pushing. He's unstoppable 20 minutes into the game. Nickwood's going to keep trying to frontline for him. He's silenced everyone, but there's no one else there to follow up, and the Whirlpool might want another victim.
This Gem of Isolation is really putting in work for Spartan and his teammates. Jumpa, without beads, without Mad Guy, is going to get stunned up by Snatos. Runs away at 60% health. Snatos is really the MVP for Big Money thus far.
Oh, yeah.
7-0-5, 21 minutes in, a part of 100% of his team's kills.
But to be fair, Shrimp Gang have stopped them from doing this Gold Fury now, despite the fact that the fight looked good for Big Money. I have to wonder if that beginning of the fight just wasn't quite clean enough from the Chaos side squad. The Kraken didn't quite get very much. As you talked about, Privative was at least able to get bead, but nothing more from his own ultimate. And Snatos took too much damage at the beginning. Maybe clean some of that up.
He was so lucky to be able to whittle his way through that with a fatal strike. The Fear No Evil was a little bit too late, and it's actually Shrimp Gang that sneaked one by.
That was so quick, wasn't it, Tully? It's been burned immediately. Now Nickwood in some trouble, though he is tanky enough to sustain through. That forces out the Storm Call, and he should be A-OK. But a small win for Shrimp Gang, getting that Gold Fury essentially uncontested.
Anything they can do to stretch this game later, to make the team fights last a little bit longer. But as I was thinking about this late game team fights, I'm actually thinking that Big Money can also take advantage if these team fights last longer. Those Poseidon Whirlpools from the Gem of Isolation,
Egregious.
it's a setup of its own right. Normally, mages have to wait for setup to be able to drop anything, but when you got a Whirlpool with Gem of Isolation, you don't need to wait for setup. You're the one setting up your teammates.
That's right. We saw how much work he was able to do. It almost single-handedly forced out the ultimate from Matt Koiz as Pyromancer is under siege without Shrimp Gang nearby. That's an easy win for Big Money. But yeah, there's so many tools available to Big Money that they've got to make sure that they're getting the value out of them all. That was the only thing I think that went wrong for them at that last Gold Fury fight. Making sure they're getting that maximum value. And maybe even a little bit more from Conviction. I feel like his name hasn't come up that much.
No, but Jumpa's name is coming up quite heavily after he looks for the Blink engage, forcing out the beats from Spartan. 160-second window now for Jumpa to go for round 2, knowing that his Blink is about 50 seconds sooner than that defensive relic.
And Spartan is one you want to remove. Right now, for me, he's the damage. It's Snados who's completing all these kills, and he's the one that's kind of sitting on the backline harassing them. But that's because the Original Spartan is this looming threat at the back of the fight.
I mean, Snados is not only, cleaning up the kills, he's starting them off, too. Like, he's going in, he's blinking in. He's actually even picking up Height of the Urchin, expecting a lot more team fights, and even going for a Talisman of Energy, knowing that whether the fight's in the jungle or in the laning phase, that there's going to be the potential to stack that up and get extra movement speed and attack speed for his teammates.
Yeah, and he ain't wrong either, so should be able to get plenty of value from that energy talisman. As the Spectral Armor comes in from Matt Koiz, I imagine this is in response to Conviction on the crit on the Jingwei build so far, so that'll try and slow some of that down. He has been getting blown up. He's got 5 deaths right now, so that's good recognition that he has to do something to try and stay alive.
Normally, when you're dealing with crit, you want to get Height of Enemy in line to reflect that kind of crit, but knowing that the Hunter's got the Devil Gloves and the Sustain anyway, it's just not enough. So unless you go Height of Enemy and Thorns, that's what you want to do against crit, or if you don't get Thorns, then you might as well stick with the Spectral Armor so that way you'll survive a little bit more effectively. And I guess Matt Koiz is expecting these team fights to last quite a long time.
For him to get some extended use out of the objectives as Big Money control the space around the Fire Giant. We talk about this all the time, Tully. Maybe there's some benefit to them waiting. We're right at that 25-minute mark, so we might as well let it become enhanced before you consider pulling it. But I don't think Big Money controlled this that well to where they could just pick and choose when they grab it. As Shrimp Gang have fallen back for now, so is Big Money. We won't be seeing the Fire Giant dance that we normally see as Matt Koiz comes in to drop some wards.
Yeah, definitely not super ahead, right? They're only up about 2,000 gold, which is nothing to write home about as we're approaching 25 minutes. So it makes sense as to why both teams are just kind of backing off thus far, trying to look for picks. And there's plenty of setup for picks. Matt Koiz can look from a root and abduct from a distance. The Fear No Evil from Jumpa can be used to engage. But when it's off the mark like that, it's not looking good for Shrimp Gang.
They were trying to see if they could lock down Xerxes early on, but that ends up failing. Privative goes up into the ultimate, but it's really only Nickwood who's in range. That forces out Stormcall defensively, so it's 2 for 1 in terms of ults so far. And Big Money, they recognize that advantage. They're pushing aggressively into the jungle.
Look at Spartan. He's wrapping around. He's actually going to clear out the midway first before electing what he's going to do. Checking the red buff.
Oh,
My man is going into the enemy jungle, but I like the positioning that he drops that regular ward just in case somebody would turn around the corner.
Fortunate that no one ends up coming to look for him too quickly, and he's able to make it out of there as Xerxes wants to root down Matt Koiz, locks him in with the stun and the cripple field, and that's why we see Snados joining the fray. Whirlpool is good damage, but not enough. Original Spartan's low on mana. They might not want to keep this fight going too much longer.
This is the problem with Poseidon in general. You have to be a little mindful about using those abilities very freely the way he has. Even popping your 2 for a steroid of the movement speed will be a factor to consider.
He backed. That's right, Original's out of this one, so he's not going to be able to join along with the fight. Fear No Evil is good. That means Snados is locked down. Shutdown bonus goes over to Zaxi, and I don't even know if they knew it, but because Original Spartan backed, there was no punish for the group up.
I'm not sure if they knew either way, but like Snados was caught in the dead middle center of that Fear No Evil. Ate the full 2 seconds of the effect just being feared even closer to the enemies. Shrimp Gang was able to take full advantage of that one.
Well, now let's take a look at this Fire Giant, enhanced as he is. Xerxes wants to dash in, but he's already given up 40% of his HP, and the rest of Shrimp Gang just turned for the burn. Jumpa has the bear isolated, but can't continue to chase him down. Instead, it's Nickwood and Matt Koiz trying to deal with Privative. He manages to survive, so Shrimp Gang come back to the FG.
They are very healthy, so it shouldn't be too big of a problem knowing that Snanos is still dead in 10 seconds.
No one's here.
Spartan without too much mana as well, going to the left side of the jungle. This should be free for Shrimp Gang unless Conviction can steal it.
With his airstrike, that's about the only way, and he has to use it defensively. Arignal's on the backside,
No way.
so he might have a chance. Whirlpool comes through. Shrimp Gang secure the objective for themselves, and Arignal can't find anyone else on the backside, so it's only 1 kill for the objective so far. But now that Privative has joined the fray, he might have something to say.
Uh-oh, Kobe now trying to survive. Thus far, Privative used that blink offensively, but with Nick with there, that's going to be a quick pick and a Fire Giant, only losing Matt Koiz.
Gang, gang. In favor of Shrimp Gang here. They secure the objective, though it was quite close.
Oh, yeah.
Arignal Spartan was right there with a chance to steal, but it's just so difficult to be patient and time that correctly, especially up against a strong team. And just like that, Shrimp Gang now are very much relevant in this game, if not in the driver's seat. They've got a couple towers to go burn down, though the Primal Fury is a nice consolation prize for big money.
I truly underestimated the mobility of this Poseidon
He's
in
so
the
fast.
late game. Like, when I saw him in the left side jungle, I'm like, there's no way he's going to get there in time, but surely he did. I think that the middle, the epicenter of his Kraken might have been off the mark, so it might have only been the outer ring. I'm kind of curious to check that one back later down the line, but either way, he was in position to steal it, very close on the mark, only able to really do enough damage to kill out Matt Koiz, though.
He's zooming. I just love following along with this Poseidon as he zooms around the map when he uses that second ability, man.
Have you ever played against, like, full mobility Poseidon?
It's impossible. He's too fast.
That doesn't answer my question. Have you played against full
Yes.
mobility Poseidon?
Yes. I used to do 1v1s all the time, and Poseidon was a really good pick, and they'd build a bunch of movement speed, and they would just auto you down with this Trident because you can't outbox it. It was OP.
That's right. He can, like, backpedal against you because of Gem of Isolation
It's
as
so
well.
good. I hated it. And they're going to try and defend this Tier 2 tower. I didn't segue that, but it's okay. We'll move on. Tier 2 tower's already burned down. Shrimp Gang able to grab that one easily, and Big Money want to defend on the Phoenix.
Do you think that after they destroy every tower, they're just, like, saying gang gang?
For sure they are, yeah. For sure. I would, if I was in those comms. Here's what I would contribute in comms if I was on Shrimp Gang. I would say things like, help, help, I've been dodged, and then I would also say gang, gang every time I did anything small. Get my own red buff, gang, gang.
Okay.
Gang, gang.
As they're going to try to gang gang this Tier 2 middle tower. So far, so good in terms of its health, but I don't think
Nice.
that they're really going to commit to the defense. Big Money going to give that one up.
Yeah, this Tier 2 tower is going down. The best thing about that for Shrimp Gang is that Matt Koiz was able to strip the Magai's Cloak from Snados with that ranged root. So if they want to keep pushing, he'll be slightly more vulnerable than normal. But it's Arignal Spartan who's caught out. Kraken does hit Matt Koiz and bring him quite low. He drops the ultimate on himself. That might have been a bit of a panic as Privative want to pull over the wall. It's only Nickwood that he'll grab, and Nickwood certainly is dead to right. Snados cleans that one up, so a nice defense so far from Big
What
Money.
a bait. Spartan putting himself out of position, and now the rest of his team looking for the cleanup Fatal Strike. Not even necessary because Conviction takes out Matt Koiz. The chase is on to Kobe. He can't get out of that one.
Whirlpool, man, there were no options for that poor Merlin, and just like that, 2 members of Shrimp Gang go down. And while getting the Tier 2 towers is nice, you definitely want more than that off your Fire Giant. So this is a win for Big Money, especially if they can counter push and get a Phoenix of their own, which it looks like they want to do. They've got all 5 members here, and with only Shrimp Gang with 2 members and no ultimates to defend, I think this is their Firebird.
It's definitely their middle Phoenix, but the question is, how frisky are Big Money feeling? Do they go for the end afterwards? But Matt Koiz coming up in 8 seconds. I think they're just going to go for the safe, guaranteed middle Phoenix and disengage after.
It looks like that to me too. They're positioning all signals that they don't want anything further. They're going to grab the Fire Giant that they've earned for themselves after an impressive fight. And Tully, I know you're calling it a bait.
That was
Arignal.
just weird. I'm still scratching my head of like, how the hell did this guy survive? Because honestly, he didn't have Aegis during that. Like
Right.
I noticed, they were still on cooldown for about 30 seconds.
Jump on one Xerxes. We might not even have a chance to recap the last fight as the Unbots punishes the RDO. And now a 5v4 in favor of Shrimp Gang.
Oh,
Can the
no.
counter push get counter pushed? It seems like that's the case.
Spartan now will
Yet
use
again!
the Aegis, but this
My
time
mans!
will fall yet again. Not the position to be. That's how it should have looked in the last time he put himself that far out of position.
Well, now Privative is too far forward. Zaxi finds that kill. Snados and Conviction are still alive, yes, but it's difficult to defend up against this many members of Shrimp Gang. Covey is keeping the middle lane pushed up by himself too, but this left side Phoenix has been burned quite quickly. Matt Koiz is low in execute threshold, but Snados has to be careful. Conviction comes around and finds Jumpa.
Oh, he wants it. You can tell he has the airstrike still available. Going to use that defensively, so the Titan still holding strong.
Wow.
The rest of Shrimp Gang not confident to aggress without Jumpa. The main objective now should be the middle Phoenix.
Zaxy's low. Snado's got a lot of good damage off. They actually proc the Scarab's Blessing, and now Matt Koiz is in trouble as Xerxes keeps pushing forward. There's so much damage on this big money team. Nikwit, though, plenty tanky. He can frontline and keep Snados at bay. A nice slow from Kobe as well. And Shrimp King fall back.
Everyone's just all over the place. Conviction chasing on the right side. Matt Koiz is able to abduct into safety. There's a huge wave actually going to push that tier 2 tower in the solo side against Shrimp Gang. They're probably going to lose that. I'm kind of curious how many archers are exactly over there. It looks like 15. That was like about 5 waves worth.
Quite a few that were up there as Covey, even though he didn't get to be in the fight that much, I like what he did for them. He was the one that kept the mid-wave pushed up. And remember, those would have been fire minions.
Yes.
Because this mid-Phoenix was burned down by big money. So that's why Shrimp Gang were so comfortable and had so much time during that engagement. Now will the opposite be true as there is an exposed Phoenix on the left-hand side that big money have to worry about. And there will be an Oni wave coming as well in favor of big money too. So that's quite nice.
An Oni fire wave is pretty good.
It's good.
Down
Yeah.
the mid wave. So Shrimp Gang need to keep in mind that that's a possibility, as their middle Phoenix is due to respawn in about a minute and a half, but they're the ones actually not worried at all because they also have fire minions trickling down the left side.
Well, big money should have been here for this. There's no reason why I think that they couldn't have been, and instead they'll be late. This Fire Giant now in the hands of Shrimp Gang, and they will indeed confirm the objective, but it's Original Spartan who comes in on the backside and finds Jumpa. Nikwit has the Scarab's Blessing on him, but very patient is big money. They don't proc it just yet. Now Snados joins, and they want to try and lock down Matt Koiz, but the dash gets him away, and Snados keeps right on going to the back line, but Kobe found Original.
They did find Nikwit also onto the Powwow, but no real follow-up after the fact. The Root is going to pop the Mad Guy's Cloak. Nikwit needs to get stunned out to find that kill that chases onto Kobe in the mid lane. You can tell Privative wants it, but he's taking too much poke.
Conviction can't quite keep up with these front lines, so they don't have the damage. Kobe jukes around his own damage, but it is not enough. Killing spree for Snados yet again. 4 members up for big money, only 3 for Shrimp Gang, and they've got a Fire and Oni wave pushing through mid, and then Oni's on the other side as well. This means that they could have an opportunity to try and make something happen.
They could go for the right side Phoenix if they wanted to. Looking like Snados is going to teleport somewhere. No, he's actually going to defend the left side before making his decision. There are going to be a lot of fire minions there needing to be dealt with. And man, this game is just so back and forth already. 35 minutes in. You can't even tell who's going to win, honestly.
It's that close between these two teams. You're exactly right. As Snados is on the left-hand side defending the Phoenix. That means big money can't capitalize. And there's still a Fire Giant buff for most of Shrimp Gang. Matt Koiz, Zaxy, and Nikwit all have it to their names. But totally, for me, what I saw in that last fight is that with Original dead, there was no way for Conviction to stay far enough forward to follow up off Snados and Xerxes. Those guys are so good at sticking to Shrimp Gang, but I don't know if the Jingwei can be there to follow up.
No, definitely not. You need your backliners alive at all given moments. Spartan, a little too frisky for his own good. For a majority of this game, did take an early tumble. It was a great ultimate, however, to start things off at that Fire Giant, despite Shrimp Gang securing it and Nikwit zoning out with his Storm Call. Spartan still got in position, got off a great ultimate. I think he killed Jump Up before Matt Koiz's ultimate was out there. And that was just easy pickings for the rest of the fight. But without your Poseidon for consistent damage, it was easy for Shrimp Gang to retaliate.
It was easy for Shrimp Gang to retaliate, but I wonder if that even should have happened. Totally. I mean, I feel like big money could have reasonably been there at the start of that Fire Giant fight to defend. There was a Fire Minion wave in this dual lane, yes, and maybe that was the concern, but I feel like they were just late.
A little bit. They needed to be there. More awareness, some calls needing to be made. Sometimes there needs to be that 5-minute timer of when you know the enemy secured that Fire Giant, and somebody to check up on that timer, right? Because anyone could be like, all right, they got it at 31 minutes, Fire Giant responding at 36. But all right, who's going to remind the team? It's like, hey, we're at 35, 30. Let's go to the Fire Giant now.
We have another big fight on our hands as Shrimp Gang want to force down this weakened duo side Phoenix. Some good damage coming in from Nikwit, who wants to be the front line, but they have not yet been able to get Zaxy in to actually do the sustained damage to the Phoenix.
half health on the left side. Middle Phoenix still standing strong. Probably going to be a jungler versus jungler action in the mid lane, separating the rest of the squad into a 4-on-4 on the left. All ultimates available, relics as well. Look for the blinks.
And keep your eyes on the Rignal Spartan. That ultimate from him is going to be critical as Matt Koiz comes in right away. Privative is up in the air, and there's the Kraken off the mark. They don't get nearly enough out of it. Privative will at least pull Matt Koiz back in, but a Fear No Evil follow-up from Jumpa's there. Snados finds nothing with the executed. Matt Koiz has a target, but a Rignal Spartan has the damage. He punishes the bug and sends Shrimp Gang running.
Matt Koiz just got too far ahead of himself. He abducted after surviving the Poseidon Kraken, the Achilles Fatal Strike. He could have canceled the abduct and been able also to revive himself, but he took too much damage too quickly, just unexpected, I think, for himself.
I think so too. He was maybe hoping they had a chance to burn someone down, but it was him that got burned, unfortunately, if you're a fan of Shrimp Gang. And that left side Phoenix defended. And Toli, that's a defense where I think they got next to nothing out of Kraken. I mean,
oh, yeah.
To be honest. So, I mean, that could have been way worse for Shrimp Gang.
I agree. I think that could have been way better. But also the flip side, I think Shrimp Gang's engages was a little sloppy. Like, there was no blink out of Niquid or jump. It was just straight up walking in. And
You're right,
I don't think they got
available.
the most effective Storm Call or even the most effective Fear No Evil.
The Fear No Evil was okay, but you're right. It was kind of a good defensive one, right? When you're in that situation, you'd like that to be kind of the killing blow that sets up for Covey and Zaxi, and they couldn't quite find it as Primal should go down in favor of Big Money. I think they've already gotten one. You can see that torch lit. So this should be their second of the game, giving them 14% if they want to move over and try and burn down this FG.
That's right. In this newest patch, going from 5% per stack to 7%. So looking pretty good if you're Big Money, especially when you got a big old Kraken that would love to have 14% extra damage on those jungle bosses.
Yeah, good luck out securing that. No one on Shrimp Gang can match the burst instantaneous damage that a Rignal Spartan has. And there's a lot on his shoulders. He's played this game well, and I've been critical of some of these Krakens, but for the most part, he's played real well. They need a little bit more, though, if they want to close out against a really good team.
He just needs to play a little bit tight right now. This is where mages can't be this loose as he was in the earlier portions, because the respawn timers are too long to take that kind of a risk. Like, if you don't kill anyone, and you make your life a complete waste there, then that's just, your team's going to lose.
Fire Giant being started now. Zaxy's on it. Niquid is the one zoning, stuck inside the Whirlpool, but it's not enough damage. Snados comes to say hello as well, but can't quite lock anyone down, and Fire Giant is leashed yet again. Shrimp Gang, not confident.
Middle Phoenix has respawn for both sides. Left side Phoenix respawning for the likes of Big Money Esports. So it's just kind of like a bait tactic, but man, Shrimp Gang is taking a little bit too much damage thus far, at least onto Matt Koiz.
Yeah, Matt Koiz now at about 60%. They both got knocked up as the Cripple Field comes out the perfect time to stop Matt Koiz. It's a solo ultimate onto Snados, and that does force out that Fatal Strike defensively. Privative didn't find a whole lot with his ultimate in either. No one got pulled in. And Big Money can't even stick around. They've sent at least one back. It's just Snados who can teleport back in.
Primitive's ultimate forcing out so many relics. Xerxes going to take an early spill. Matt Koiz eating the full effects of the Kraken, still with his Scarab's blessing as Spartan gets taken out by Covey.
This is big. Primitive is going to come clean up Matt Koiz. At least he should have. There it is with the Trickster Spirit that hunts him down, but it's still a 2-for-1 in favor of Shrimp Gang so far. And now Primitive is too far forward with no mobility. Covey gets the final hit. Snados and Conviction, the only two left. And I don't even know if Shrimp Gang need the objective. They can just push down mid.
I think so here, Finch. This should be a middle Phoenix. It's up to Snados and Conviction. You got Airstrike. You don't have Fatal Strike. 4 members stand strong. Only Matt Koiz is missing from the equation, but they got the DPS that they need.
They have plenty of damage as Covey keeps these minions cleared up. Snados is going to need to come up big and set up for Conviction so we can get some damage in. Airstrike is still available for this Jing Wei, but I don't know if they can move in. This Phoenix is already down to about half HP. In fact, it's already been burned. Big Money can't stop them.
Big Money not able to secure their middle Phoenix, but keep their Titans' hopes alive. With Xerxes coming up in 5 seconds, Shrimp Gang didn't want to push their advantage any further. I think that they could still back, wait for Matt Koiz to come up, and go for this Fire Giant, knowing that the Fire Minions is going to be an issue for a little bit.
From me, though, Toli, this is still impressive from Big Money. To be able to go this far up against a Shrimp Gang team, this stacked with talent, they've shown some really impressive stuff to me so far. Snados, in particular, and Original have really, really played well this game. And I don't know if I've given enough credit to Xerxes on this RDO, who's really been a nuisance in this front line too.
The cripple has been a big factor for Shrimp Gang. That abduct from Matt Koiz, stopping mid-animation was a big deal for
nice,
the engage. Yeah. The ultimate from Privative even was solid. He forced out every single beads, I think. Getting off, I think, also the Storm Call from Niquid. I think he might have hit 4 people outside of Matt Koiz with that one ultimate.
It's very impressive, but the problem is they just couldn't follow up on it. And we talked about it right before that fight, right? That as well as Original has played, he's got to play even better if they want to close this out. It's got to be so clean from this Poseidon. The same thing that makes the Kraken so strong, that all at one burst, is the same thing that means it has to be perfect. It's just one thing. You only get one try.
It's a one-and-done kind of trick, honestly. But with the Gem of Isolation, it kind of gives more possibilities for Poseidon to still be relevant without his Kraken. So I like this item pickup. I think it's almost time to sell Spear of Magus and pick up that Obsidian Shard, as it is very late into the game.
That's a good point. Obsidian Shard would feel nice as Pyromancer goes down for Shrimp Gang. That means if this battle gets crazy, they could afford to send 1 or 2 back and rotate back in much faster with that extra speed buff. But as now we approach 43 minutes in the game, neither team has a significant advantage at all. Boots are starting to be sold as we have just that much time passing.
Elixir of Speed, pretty good now. It's after the 40-minute mark, very easy to stack that one up. Matt Koiz trying to pop out some Mad Guy's Cloak. Xerxes using that dash to escape it. It's a kind of a game of inches like that when everyone is looking for any little advantage, forcing out the relics, forcing out the Mad Guy's Cloak, relaying that information to the rest of your teammates to look for secondary waves.
Looks like we might have a grouping off of the Fire Giant. For some reason, there's been a gentleman's agreement to come battle around the red buff. Shrimp Gang know that 43 minutes in, that's perhaps the most impactful buff on the map, except for the Fire Giant. When you get that into the hands of a late-game mage or hunter, it's so much extra damage they're doing for free.
Oh, Fury was thought about by Shrimp Gang, kind of just doing a drive-by to secure it, but like, I think it's big money that's going to pull it now, but there's a wave on the left side that chipped away at that tier 2 tower. Snados trying to dash forward to avoid that roof. Couldn't really find it. Does get his Mad Guy's Cloak. Popped, needing to wait 60 seconds there, but look how far forward Xerxes is.
He's been pulled in already. Fear no evil to continue the lockdown, and Jumpa finds an easy pick. Pivot is up in the air, but no one gets pulled back in. I don't even know if he got any beads off that one. So that means they lose their support and they lose their ultimates on Original and Privative for basically nothing.
That Kraken did like next to no damage in that last engagement here. The Obsidian Shard needs to be picked up. Demonic Grip. Yeah, finally. Yeah, Spear Magus being sold now for the Obsidian Shard. I think he realized, like, wait a second, this Kraken not doing the same amount of damage I remember it used to do. And looking at the build here from Matt Koiz, he has a decent amount of magical protection. Also, Spirit Throw goes a long way mitigating that burst damage.
Snados is here, so the Fire Giant won't be free for Shrimp Gang totally. They will have to pay a price of some sort, and it looks like the price is zoning. Whirlpool pulls in 3, but the carries can't tank the objective by themselves, so it's leashed for now, but they can come back in, keep it pulled before it fully resets. Phoenix back up in the middle lane, and Big Money can't really find their way in.
They can't quite yet. Privative holding on to the middle wave. Fire Giant will be secured from Shrimp Gang.
Ringel's too far forward.
Too far forward. He doesn't get the Kraken off quite yet. Still needs a little bit of cooldown. Going to his teammate in the middle lane, hoping for some savior.
Jumpa goes in, but there's nowhere for this Poseidon to go. Xaxi burns him down quite quickly, and suddenly Big Money pay the price. I don't know if they have quite enough money, quite enough stacks to handle how much they'll owe as Shrimp Gang want to barrel down the middle lane. This mid Phoenix only just respawned, so it doesn't have very much health. There's fire minions here as well. They should be able to burn this one.
Spartan got a little too far ahead of himself. To go that far forward at the Fire Giant pit without Kraken, you're just asking for a bad time. He needed his teammates to be the buffer for him to be the second wave to go in following up.
You're going to have a bad time, and unfortunately, Original Spartan did. Matt Koiz looks for the pull in the Snados and finds nothing. It's in fact Matt Koiz who gets pulled right back in, but he has the Scarab's Blessing, and he's too tanky at this point to be bursted that quickly. Jump on the left-hand side keeps Conviction away, and that means the mid lane Phoenix goes down. They'll turn their attention to the gigantic wave in right, which has already burned down the Firebird.
That was so fast. There was just nothing Big Money can do with Shrimp Gang barreling down the mid wave, and I wanted to point something out. Despite how good Snados is playing at 10-1 and 10, he's pulling the trigger too early on his fatal strikes.
Before they're even close to execute
Yeah,
threshold.
like he's trying to time the health to get to that level, but honestly at this point, he needs to confirm it.
Fear No Evil used yet again to lock down Xerxes. That's been the theme of these last 2 engagements. Original Spartan drops down the Kraken, but Aegis, so often in these late game fights, means Kraken does nothing. Kobe drops down the slow to get himself out of there. That's all 3 Phoenixes, and I think Shrimp Gang got everything they wanted. They just want to leave.
They do, and that's a great chalk slow after the fact, even using the mounted archery out of Zaxi. Kobe gonna flicker away as well. Everyone gonna be safe from Shrimp Gang. They got all 3 Firebirds. That Titan out of big money, even taking a decent amount of chip poke.
And now Shrimp Gang are in a perfect position. It's very, very rare to be able to come back once you lose all 3 Titans and your base is fully exposed. And they've done this now by focusing Xerxes early on in these engagements several times.
Oh yeah, they have.
Being willing to commit Fear No Evil just to take him out.
It's crazy, honestly, with how easy it is taking them out. Spartan's damage is being negated either by pure magical defense items or the Aegis as well. Kobe was able to survive that one relatively cleanly. This is where 3K potions are starting to be a factor. Kobe popping his. Zaxi still holding on to his until the last siege as it persists through death, trying to maximize the absolute full duration out of that one. And this is where Big Money is on their last legs. It is still game 1 though, so even if they do lose this one, they can still readjust in game 2.
But it's a lengthy game they have to recover from. Original Spartan already low. Aegis, it feels like, came out a bit too late. Privative will pull Kobe back in, but Scarab's Blessing is that much better. Kobe returns to the land of the living, and that's a lot of ultimates on cooldown for Big Money.
Without beads or Aegis, I think Kobe's thankful for the 3rd relic he had, which was Scarab's Blessing from Matt Coy.
Yeah.
It's the perfect moment there. But without that ultimate, I still think that Big Money could press forward knowing that Scarab's Blessing is not going to be a factor.
They've got minions in left and a wave here with them to push with. They pop the sprint. They want to move right into the Titan room. Fear No Evil comes out. It's Jumpa who's all alone on this Titan. He says, let's just burn the objective. We've got plenty of damage. Kobe comes in, takes down Conviction, and just like that, 48 minutes in, Shrimp Gang take game 1.
It was a well-played performance in the later stages. Shrimp Gang were struggling early on. I think Kobe was down so many levels, but honestly, Jumpa able to make a lot of plays, made up for that disparity on his own right.
Nickwood was behind as well on that chalk, right? When you compare him over in the solo lane, but unfortunately that didn't end up mattering. Such a good job from Shrimp Gang of stalling that game out bit by bit, finding their way in. I think they were helped a bit by a couple of lackluster ults from Original Spartan in that mid game too.
It's kind of what enabled him and his team to see some success in the earlier stages, but then late game, he also needed more penetration, and he realized it a little too late.
Yeah, they were able to win the street fights, but once they got to the dojo, they couldn't handle those cleaner fights, I suppose. But impressive from them in game number 1. Can they do it again in game number 2 is the question. Let's get it back over to the desk.
Big Money Esports falls just short of a Game 1 victory. It's Shrimp Gang that continues to look pretty good, but Taco, this Merlin that we were also excited about, it took a while for Kobe to start getting it rolling.
I think he definitely had a lot of struggles in the early game, largely due to the fact that Spartan just kept cutting him off at every possible avenue. I think that by the time we really start to see this Merlin rise up, it was at a stage where the game had gone on for so long that the damage was just there for Kobe and the setup even better from the rest of Shrimp Gang.
You're right. In the late game, Kobe definitely started making some plays, but really all of Shrimp Gang was making plays towards the end of the game. Spartan's positioning there on that last Fire Giant, trying to come and contest without Kraken when the rest of his team isn't. Probably not exactly what you're looking for, but overall, Snados looked great on this Achilles. I mean, he was dominant in the early stages and stayed pretty good even in the later stages.
I think that Snados did a fantastic job of playing off of and around Original Spartan. That Gem of Isolation, when all those slows early on, really gave Snados and Privative a lot of leeway for diving that backline from Shrimp Gang, and it worked out. I mean, Zaxi, I think, was definitely struggled to find relevant damage for a while, just because he was constantly getting harassed by this Achilles dodgy. Oh, and just in case you survive, you'll hear Xerxes on the RDO.
Every single time. Of course, Conviction did what he could on the Jing Wei, but Zaxi ended up doing just a little bit more when it comes towards the later stages. So Big Money is going to have to try and make some adjustments for game number 2. What do you think they should be doing differently?
I think that Big Money had the right idea of looking to kind of send Spartan for more of this utility style of play, but I think I need to see more from Privative in the jungle specifically. Snetto's had so much pressure on this map throughout a good portion of this game that I definitely think the Daji could have capitalized and punished from getting a little bit heavier there, but ultimately, I think that this loss was just a result of some slight moments of miscommunication with Big Money.
Do you think that they're going to give Covey the Merlin again for picks and bans?
I'm not sure that it was necessarily a threat, but it's one of those things where just because it doesn't seem the greatest when it's actually in action doesn't necessarily mean you should allow Magal with a free blink away.
Plus, he already has that game under his belt. Maybe those early game struggles, he's already past those.